Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. Happy Monday. I'm Trevor Lane, joined as always by Keith Smith. Keith, we're starting a new week here. I guess our full week here in the NBA calendar, and a lot going on around the NBA. We saw some upsets around the league yesterday, some surprising scores. We got a lot to talk about on today's show. Before we get into it all, don't forget to subscribe, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications as well. Keith, I feel a lot more refreshed now after getting a weekend in. I was feeling it a little bit the first few days of NBA basketball. I was drinking from the fire hose a little bit. Now I'm ready. I'm locked in and ready to go.
Yeah, get ready for this week, though. It's a weird week. The NBA obviously does what they can to avoid stacking too many games against especially the NFL. So we have 11 games tonight. I realize there's Monday Night Football, but there's only so many days you can avoid. But then only four on Tuesday. Then it's like another packed night Wednesday. Very few games Thursday. Friday and Saturday both pretty busy. Not a lot Sunday. And then next Monday, a week from today, Election Night Eve, every team plays. There are 15 games, and there's a game tipping every 15 minutes between 7 and 10:30. So they did this a couple years ago. It was actually wildly successful because you could kind of like jump in and see the end of every game. And that first time they did this, they got super successful because there was a bunch of close games. And a lot of people were like, why can't it be like this every night? Well, why it can't is because we would literally drown in NBA games if there were 15 all the time like that. But yeah, it's going to be a weird week. And then obviously election night is off for the NBA as it has been for several years now. They take the night off. So to encourage folks to go vote, as well as arenas have increasingly become used as polling places for a lot of voting. So that was a part of the initiative there as well. So weird week coming, but yeah, I hear you. There was a lot going on, a lot of blowouts early in the season. I think we're going to see sometimes if you just can't make anything from deep and the other team is on fire, it's just going to be a blowout.
That's
like,
the game.
I know that seems simple, but with the rate teams take threes now, like I think that's going to be increasingly more happening, as well as like a 20-point lead. I can't tell you how many games I've already seen where 20-point lead was erased in a matter of like 5-10 minutes because one team got super hot. So that's the plus and minus, I guess, of the 3-point shot.
For sure. Yeah, it creates more variance. It creates more blowout situations, but also more exciting comebacks. So I think the NBA will take that trade-off. By the way, you said we're going to be drowning in NBA games. You got to go sometime. That wouldn't be a bad way to go. You know?
Yeah, if you had to go out some way, sure. Yeah, I'd take it.
Right?
There's a lot worse ways to go.
Absolutely. All right. Let's get the negative stuff out of the way first. Steph Curry. Keith, I'm sure you saw it. Steph, no contact, rolls his ankle, and then rolls it again in last night's loss to the Clippers, limped to the locker room. The Warriors are preparing to miss him for multiple games. Of course, anytime there's ankle stuff with Steph Curry, I know it's been a while since the ankle thing has really been an issue, but back in my day, man, there were some years there where there was real concern about Steph Curry's ankles. Part of the reason why he didn't get a big contract coming off of his rookie deal. So, relatively big anyway. So not sounding the alarm, but that was rough seeing Steph roll his ankle like that. And now the Warriors are going to be without him for a bit.
Yeah, I think Steve Kerr called it post-game like mild to moderate.
Yeah.
But they're obviously going to be very careful with Steph. They're not going to want to do anything. They got off to a pretty good start. They lost to the Clippers last night, but absolutely rolled through their first two games, 2 blowouts. I think it was the Jazz and the Trailblazers. So let's, reserve judgment a little bit there. Sneak preview for show either tomorrow or Wednesday. We're going to wildly overreact to the first week of the season because that's just fun. But yeah, I think with, Steph, you're absolutely right. Anytime it's an ankle with him, you have a little extra. I don't know about this, but hopefully, miss a week or so or whatever, and he'll be back fine.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. All right. So Steph Curry, hopefully he'll be back soon. I know the Warriors play the Pelicans a couple times in their upcoming stretch.
Yeah,
And
because the
Pelicans,
Pelicans apparently only play 2-game series against everybody in the first month of the
right?
season.
That's
It's
that's
ridiculous.
that's all they do.
Yeah.
But maybe a little bit of a saving grace for the Pelicans, who are dealing with their own injury situations.
Yep.
So we'll see ultimately how those play out. But maybe a bit of a relief for the Pelicans that they're also dealing with a team that has their starting point guard out due to
Mhm.
injury. All right, let's jump over here. Speaking of the Warriors, the Sixers and Nets are interested in Jonathan Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga, for a guy who's coming into the season playing for his next contract, wanting to prove that he is a three, that's what he believes he is. Steve Kerr questioned whether or not he could shoot. He's 1 for 9 from behind the arc so far to start the season. He has not played that well. He's not been that efficient. He is better than this, better than what we're seeing right now. I'm
Yep.
fully confident he will turn it around. But the Warriors did not give him that big contract that he wanted, and other teams are already registering interest. Now, the Nets, I get. The Nets are a team that they're veteran talent. They're going to move. They make sense as a trade partner for the Warriors. Maybe the Warriors ultimately decide Jonathan Kuminga isn't it, and they want to replace him with Cam Johnson and construct a deal there, or Dorian Finney-Smith or something. Get a veteran in to fill a similar role, and there you go, right? That makes sense. The Sixers, though, being a team that's looking to win right now, they're a bit more of a peculiar option here. What do you think about the Sixers being interested in Jonathan Kuminga?
Yeah, that was a little odd to me. That's just probably Daryl Morey is always interested in good players if he can get them at the right price. And my guess is what's kind of happening in that situation with Daryl Morey is, all right, it's going to have to be a sign and trade. So what could I offer you next summer if this is how we're going to do it? I mean, they could get him now far easier, right? Because he's on, I think his contract's only about 7 million. If I
Yeah, I
remember,
think you're
that
right.
seems a little low. Am I
I'll pull
right
it
on
up here.
that? It's probably a little bit low. But it's somewhere in that range. And then so you could definitely try to make something happen for Kuminga now if the Warriors were enticed to move him. I don't think they're gonna be. The Nets, though, become interesting because the Nets are one of those teams, and we've seen Sean Marks do this in the past. Throw offer sheets at guys and say, "Hey, let's go. Let's dump a big offer sheet on a guy and just go with that." So 7.6 for Kuminga, I knew it was a little low at 7 million. So that is, I mean, very tradable right now. Far more tradable than had he extended, because then he would have been poison pilled. But this says to me, teams are kind of letting it be known, hey, we get to the offseason and things aren't going where you want them to go with the Warriors, you will have offers.
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be offers out there. I think teams will value Jonathan Kuminga. I think the big question is going to be: are you willing to give Jonathan Kuminga the contract that he wants?
Yeah.
If you are, then okay, then maybe you're in business. And maybe the Warriors, if they decide, you know what, actually, after seeing what we've seen this season, maybe we don't want to be the team to give him his next contract. And maybe that's where ultimately this ends up. Certainly something to monitor ahead of the trade deadline. But like I said, right now, he's not off to a great start this season, but small sample size. He'll bounce back. I'm confident he's going to bounce back.
Yeah. And with the way this has gone, you would never trade Andrew Wiggins. He's been great for the
Yeah,
Warriors in the
he's been
first few games.
fantastic.
He played really, really well for them, and really kind of after Curry went down in the game last night against the Clippers, looked like they were probably done. And Wiggins led the comeback and got them back into that game. So that was interesting. Buddy Hield's also been well, he was excellent in the first 2 games, crashed back to earth last night, but that's the nature of a shooter. Every once in a while, they're just not going to have it, and it'll come. Steve Kerr's been playing 12 guys to open the season. That's probably, I said this when asked on Twitter. I said, well, how that probably takes care of itself is a guy or two goes down with injury, and unfortunately, Stephen Curry's now out, so we'll see what that looks like. But I think the Warriors are proving to be what we thought. Good team. They'll be in the mix. They'll probably be anywhere from that like 5 to 12 range in the West. Is that remains to be seen. If you lose Curry for like 3 weeks at a time, and then if you were to lose him again for another few weeks, that's closer to 12. If he comes back and guys keep playing well, you're closer to 5. So we'll see where that falls ultimately for them. But pretty good start for the Warriors overall.
Yeah, it's been a good start for them. Again, they dropped that game to the Clippers last night, but losing Steph Curry mid-game, that's certainly a factor. they'll be in the mix right there in the West. Like you said, that's where this team's going to be, and really where they should be. So, and like I've been looking at the Warriors quite a bit lately. They're also a club that I think could do something big midseason. We know they tried to during the summer. They've got the contracts to try to make something big happen. Exactly what they'll do, I think they're going to wait and see how all of these pieces fit together, and then make the appropriate adjustments as we get closer to the trade deadline. But so far, so good for Golden State, despite the loss last night. Keith, I'll tell you one thing I really don't like. I don't like this. The Rockets are interested, reportedly, in Jimmy Butler. Why? I get the push to win right now, and the Rockets not wanting to just be that perennial team that's not quite good enough. If Jimmy Butler was a few years younger, sure, but he's not. There's a reason why Miami doesn't want to give him a max contract. You look at the games that he's missed. He's great. Don't get me wrong. He's great. He can win a playoff series just about by himself. But how confident are you that he's going to be there for a playoff series? The window is just, there's not enough time left, I think, with Jimmy Butler being elite for him to make sense as a Rockets target. So I'm a little bit disappointed to see that the Rockets would be a team that's interested in Jimmy Butler. This is, to me, this is the kind of rush thing that can actually set back a rebuilding team, a team that's building up and has a bright future. I don't mind them cashing in some chips to go to try to win right now, but I think Jimmy Butler is just above the age tier that they should be looking at.
Yeah, and this is different from if they were like cash it in to go get Kevin Durant, which was rumored last summer. I just think Durant's like a tier above Butler as a player, at least, if not a couple tiers above. In that as you go through like just thinking about players and where their standing is in the league. So that one I would be a little bit more understanding of. A lot of interesting reporting around the Rockets in the last week. I don't know that we spent a ton of time on it, but one of the things that came out, I think this was Brian Windhorst and Tim Bontemps, was they were lining up to chase Donovan Mitchell and or Derek White next summer in free agency. But then when those two guys extended, that's when they said, all right, let's do extensions with Jalen Green and with Alperen Şengün. And the belief was not right now because of the poison pill stuff, but that Jalen Green's contract was really set up to be, hey, either we're happy with having him at that number or that's a very tradable contract. We can move on from him. And then Kevin Durant was mentioned. There was Mark Stein over the weekend who mentioned they're also a team to look at if Jimmy Butler becomes available. Now, Butler did not do an extension with the Heat. This is one of those kind of weird ones where because he has a player option next year, he could still do that extension. He could opt out of that and then still extend off of that $48.8 million this year, which would get him into max territory or anywhere near that. So I think what we're really looking at here with the Heat is it's ultimately, do they decide they want to put him on the market? I don't know that that's ever going to be a thing. I think this might be more of a, all right, you want to leave in the summer? Fine, we'll work out a sign and trade destination for you because we're not just going to watch you walk away, but we are also not going to be the ones to initiate trading you. It's going to have to be that you push for this. And then if that happens, Rockets, we've heard the Warriors mentioned. The Warriors would make sense.
The Warriors make sense.
Yeah, right. Let's load up a couple more years of this, and then we're going to have to rebuild on the back end anyway. So who cares if we're, losing all these guys in short order. So that'll be kind of interesting to watch play out.
Like, here's the thing, Keith. If you told me, and I'm not saying that they would ever do this, they would not, but Bam Adebayo, if Bam Adebayo, something happened, his relationship was frayed with the Heat, then yes, Rockets, go all in, go do what you can, go get a Bam Adebayo. And it's rare that a 27-year-old comes on the market like that, but that's the kind of guy. Jimmy Butler at 35, and I love Jimmy, and it makes sense. If he goes to the Warriors, that makes a ton of sense because his timeline aligns with that of Steph Curry. I know, Keith, you're not that big on making sure all the guys are on this exact same timeline and all that kind of stuff because of some of the contractual issues you can run into, but he's just too close, I believe, to that age cliff to make sense for the Houston Rockets. Now, that said, if it's distressed asset, you're not going to have to give up anything significant to get. That's a totally different story. But just with the amount of money on the books here, it's going to cost a lot to go get them. I'd like to see the Rockets look elsewhere.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think this is not the move I would make. Just mostly because I worry about the availability part of it. And I know I said I would consider it for Durant, but Durant's ceiling is so much higher
Exactly.
that I'm willing to risk it a little bit, because Kevin Durant, I think, lifts the Rockets into title contention, where Jimmy Butler, I'm closer for sure. I'm not going to disrespect Jimmy Butler. Certainly, he'd get them closer. I'm just a little bit worried. I'm worried we're in the phase with Jimmy Butler where we're going to have a lot of 40 and 50 game seasons coming over the remainder of his career, just because of whether it be injuries or load management or whatever it may be. That's going to be a little tricky part. Hey, while you have this page up, I want to take a minute. We've got a little bit of a shorter show today.
Yeah.
So I want to, because people ask these questions all the time. What does all the color coding mean on Spotrac?
Sure.
So Jimmy Butler in the lighter green, that's a player option. Duncan Robinson, a couple people lower, and apologize, folks, if you're only listening to this, go look at the Miami Heat multi-year salary sheet on Spotrac, and you'll understand this. But Duncan Robinson, the darker green, that's an early termination option. For all intents and purposes, that is that's the same thing as a player option. There's some slight differences that matter, but they're very technical, so we won't get into it. Purple is an estimated contract, so that's Bam Adebayo's extension. The reason we have that on an estimate because we don't know what the cap's going to be yet. We know it's a 30% of the cap max in that first year, but we don't know what that is yet. Blue are cap holds, and then red are team options. And then the maroon or darker red color, those are restricted free agent amounts. So that's some of those. If you hover over Terry Rozier for a moment, if you can, over that 26 million there, it'll pop up. That means it's partial or non-guaranteed. It'll pop up and tell you his guaranteed amount.
It's the weirdest guarantee for him.
Yeah, it's so weird.
It's almost all guaranteed.
Yeah, almost all. Like 1.7 is not. It was like a less than a minimum deal. I don't understand why that was. And then if you go over to like Bam Adebayo, next to his name, you see the little lock next to his name. That tells you he has a trade restriction and when that will lift. If you go down to Kevin Love, you can see his as well, because he's also got one there. So that's the standard December 15th. Haywood Highsmith should be either same, maybe he's a December 15th as well. So, and then in the little blue lettering next to the guys' names, you see extension eligible, when those guys are extension eligible in the years that they are, to the extent that they are. So just a couple things people have always asked. Like, there's a lot on this page. Like, what do all these things mean? And then obviously the salaries are there as well.
A lot of really great information at a glance, which is why I love the way you guys have put this together. This is absolutely wonderful stuff and has been invaluable. Keith, I find it even when I'm overdoing stuff on Lakers Nation or whatever, like I'm just constantly going back to Spotrac just nonstop because the information is so useful. You guys have done incredible work there.
It's a real rush for me and the other guys at Spotrac when you're just randomly listening to a podcast and somebody says, over on Spotrac it shows, blah blah blah. Like it's just a lot of fun because we know a lot of people are using the site and pulling their numbers from there and everything. So we're really happy. And if you ever see anything that looks off, you can reach out to me direct. If you ever see anything that you're like, I wish it could do this, reach out. And we're always looking for ideas, and sometimes we incorporate them. Other times it's like that's too much work for a very niche thing. But especially if you're like, I've got a real project I'm trying to work on, let us know. Occasionally we're able to help pull data and stuff.
What's amazing is because you and I both, and everybody who does the stuff that we do, we've got the bat signal is always at the ready, right? We're a moment away from a big, I guess, Shams wow, whatever we're going to call it, a big notification, right? That something has happened. And so it's not like, 30 minutes, an hour, 4 hours, something crazy go by before I find out, oh, whoa, this dude just got traded or something. But most of the time, like the news breaks, I go, oh, whoa, this happened. What does this do to their roster? And I go to Spotrac, I'm like, oh my God, it's already changed. Yep. like it's so fast. It's crazy. Like the new players really already on the roster.
Yep. Yeah, they're really good with that. And there's a couple times when I'm like, whoa, hold, because there's more to come. Like let's hold on that. Like this might be a 3-team trade or whatever. But yeah, we try because we know that's what people are looking for, right? It's okay, this happened. What's next? Or what
Right.
does this look like in those kind of things? So it's, it's great. And there's just a mountain of stuff on there. There's, all kinds of things. Maybe when we're in like a really dead period and we're like all-star break or something, we'll do like a, breakdown of all like the tools we have that are publicly available, because I think people know about the salary views, but I don't think they know how much is on the site they can
Mm-hmm.
use. I'll also cheap plug, our trade machine is fully updated, working with all of the absolute correct rules there. Try to break it. Try to break it and let us know if you do. If there's something that looks like it shouldn't work and does, or should work and doesn't, by all means let us know. But we have been working on that guy, and we've added the feature where you can toggle on and off the trade restrictions. So you can turn them off.
Mm-hmm.
You could turn it to what it'll be when we get to the trade deadline. You could do it completely on right now. So like a guy like Bam Adebayo can't be traded now, but by the time we roll around to the trade deadline, his restriction will have lifted and he would be tradable. So those are the things that we're trying to give people those tools to work with, because a lot of people already start prepping now for like trade deadline and the like.
So, yeah, try to break it. Do what you can, because the trade deadline, their trade machine is absolutely fantastic and a lot of fun to play around with.
Yep.
All right, let's get back to the news. Here we've got Dennis Schroder would like to stay in Brooklyn. He had a great game last night. The Nets. Milwaukee Bucks dropped, back-to-back games, dropped to the Chicago Bulls and now the Brooklyn Nets. But Schroder was fantastic. I don't know how much I buy that he wants to stay in Brooklyn. I think this is about not closing any doors and not wanting to upset anybody or anything like that. I think he knows. I think the Nets know. Most likely somebody's going to come knocking on that door come trade deadline, and he'll probably wind up getting moved. But there's no sense in saying that right now if you're Dennis Schroder, and saying that you're looking elsewhere, because that doesn't do anything, because you never know what's going to happen. You don't want to burn any bridges or anything like that. So Dennis Schroder wanting to stay in Brooklyn, yeah, that's exactly what he should be saying right now. And I think he probably does like it in Brooklyn, but I still think he's most likely going to be on another team at the trade deadline. And if he keeps playing the way that he did in last night's game, the Nets might actually get something decent in return for him.
Yeah, I think 13 million. Now the minor challenge is he doesn't fit inside the non-tax MLE amount. So all the teams that are sitting on that can't use that. But 13 million is still a pretty easily acquirable number for teams. He is also, as we look at his contract, as you displayed here again on our Spotrac sheet, he's not extension eligible because he'd only signed a 2-year deal and you can't extend off of those. So he's in a spot where I think what you're going to see is, what does this look like with him as he kind of, plays out this last year, this contract? Because what you might see is a team that, man, we really need a veteran guard off the bench, or we need a plug and play point guard who can score a little bit, or whatever it may be. Teams may say, all right, let's do that. And then next year he's a free agent anyway. So if our guy's coming back from injury or something like that, we don't have to worry about there being overlap. We can move, but he's a guy certainly help us get to the playoffs or make a deeper playoff run than what we thought we might otherwise. So I think that it's nice that he wants to stay there. That's great. Maybe the Nets would have some interest in saying, yeah, we'll keep you around, but I think it's more likely he gets traded. Let's talk a little bit about that game from yesterday.
Sure.
And stepping a little bit on the let's overreact wildly, but like the Bucks can't handle quick guards. They struggled with it against the Bulls. They struggled with it against the Nets. Now it's
would you expect them to?
No, but it's still worth like calling out that it's a problem, right?
For sure.
Got to figure that out. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of the Bucks right now. They're just, something's off. They look a little old. They look pretty creaky. I'm a little worried about them. Maybe a little more so than I was probably should have been earlier this offseason when we're kind of doing our predictions and stuff.
Well, this is part of why I bumped them down a little bit, because I felt like we got burned by them the last 2 years. First round exits 2 years ago in particular being pretty egregious. But they need to prove it. They need, I'm not going to just say, well, you have Giannis, so you're going to be great. I'm not going to do that again. So, but you're right. Look at who went nuts against them. Two very quick guards, Cam Thomas and Dennis Schroder. They combined for 61 points. Schroder shot 5 of 8 from 3. That's not, normal. But Cam Thomas shot 2 for 8. Combined, if you told me they shot 7 for 16 from 3, I'd say, yeah, that's probably about right. So, and again, Schroeder's not going to drop 30 on every single night. He got to the free throw line 8 times, but part of that speaks to the Bucks backcourt and their inability to contain him. Look, Gary Trent Jr. I like a lot, but he's not been a good defensive player since his time in Portland. So I don't think you fixed the defensive concerns in your backcourt by getting him. And so now you still have Dame, who I think he's been better, but he's still not a defensive player. You've got some real problems. And when you run into quick guards, I think the Bucks are going to be in a bit of trouble. I'm not saying they're going to be like a play-in team or something like that. They'll still be good, but I think the ceiling is a bit capped for this Bucks team. And then that puts a lot of questions on, well, then what happens? I mean, Giannis already kind of did a reverse trade request when he said, "Oh, they're gonna trade me if we don't win a championship." He's made it clear for years. He's been talking about that he may not finish his career in Milwaukee. Those conversations are going to get louder if this is not a good season for the Milwaukee Bucks. And again, a long way to go right now. But I think there's reason to be concerned about the Bucks in terms of their overall ceiling. Can this team win a championship? I'm not convinced right now.
Yeah, and by no means do I think the Bucks are anywhere close. I don't even think they will get anywhere close to, all right, we're going to trade Giannis.
No, they're not.
If that ever did happen, every single team in the league would sit down and have their meeting of, all right, what's our best offer? Right. What is our best offer? That's not to say everybody would do it, because some of them might be like, all right, we just don't have enough, right? Like we can't make an offer, right? But every team would have that meeting internally of, all right, what's our best offer if he's actually on the table? And that's just, injury histories now 30, like all that doesn't matter. He's still Giannis. He's still one of the best players in the world. And everybody would have that meeting. There's, probably 10, 15 guys in the league that are like that teams would say, all right, well, what are we going to do to get this done? And that might be high. It's probably more like 8 to 10, but that's where it would be at. But yeah, I'm with you on Gary Trent Jr. And I said this on Twitter yesterday when I was doing my observations from this game, or maybe it was today. I can't remember. I guess it was today.
Yeah, it was today. Had to be.
Gary Trent Jr. is good, but he's better against bigger, more physical guards. He is not the step out and guard quick guys. So that's why it's been a challenge for the for the Bucks. Like they did tonight, they get the Celtics on the back-to-back, and Derek White, Drew Holiday, not necessarily the quickest guys in the world, but Derek White definitely is, and it's going to be a challenge for them to keep up, because I think their problems too, as much as we're talking about their defense, I think their offense has been a little rough as well.
Do you think that is any bit of their issue though with last night's game? Do you think it was, well, we've got the Nets and then we have the Celtics, and they're focused and they were looking ahead to the Celtics game and kind of overlooking the Brooklyn Nets, who are not, I mean, most people projected them to be maybe the worst team of the NBA this season?
Yeah, it could have been. There definitely could have been some of that.
Okay. Well,
you're coming off a loss to the Bulls. Like, I would hope
that's true.
You'd be a little more dialed in, but yeah, now you overlook a team and get beat. That's how that turns it into, all of a sudden now you've lost 3 in a row, and that's, really not where you want to be. Shout out to our guy, D-Rock. He's a regular in our Front Office Friday shows. He's a big Nets fan. He asked me, I'm pretty sure it's the same guy. Otherwise, what a coincidence. Because he's got the same name on Twitter. But he asked me, like, I'm starting to believe in this Nets team a little bit. And this is where I said, beware the early season results.
Sure.
Like, this is great. Enjoy it while you have it. But this is going to turn around eventually with this Nets team, and probably crater, but that's okay. That's all part of the plan, right? And it may be intentionally where they, if we're a month into them kind of playing okay, you might have Sean Marks be like, all right, enough of this. Buy Dennis Schroder, buy Cam Johnson, buy Dorian Finney-Smith. Like, come on down, Noah Clowney, you're going to get 35 minutes a night. Let's go, Zaire Williams. You are now a 30-minute a night starter, and those kind of things. Because I think where he's going to be very cautious of winning too many games.
Absolutely. All right, let's finish up with this. There's a report that was out. It was a few days ago, but that the Lakers are interested in Walker Kessler. And Keith, this is it was Jovan Buha, who does a great job, who just kind of mentioned it on one of his shows. Said the Lakers, they've been interested in Walker Kessler. I mean, we heard about this back in July. I think this is, and suddenly it started making the rounds. Everybody's picking it up. The Lakers are interested in Walker Kessler. That was months ago. They have been. I don't think he was reporting, and I haven't talked to Jovan to ask him, but I don't think he was reporting anything new there. Like, we've known they had interest for a while now. I thought this was some aggressive aggregation is what I'm going to go ahead and call it, because I like alliteration. This is, I thought people ran with it as though something new was happening. Keith, if anything, when I'm looking at the Walker Kessler situation and how well he's played for Utah, I think if anything is changing with the situation, it's that I'm probably less willing to trade him now if I'm the Jazz.
Completely agree. Or it's going to be like, hey, where it might have been one first round pick over the summertime, like now we want one of your interesting young guys and a first round pick, or we want 2 first round picks, or you pick, right? Your choice of putting together a package of 2 of 4 things or whatever it is, because that is how it goes sometimes with this. I think part of what happens is we are so dry for any form of like juicy transaction news at this time of year, but that's natural, right? The season just started. Teams just finalized rosters. Half the league is not tradable right now until December 15th at the earliest, because that's when guys who sign their contracts early in the summertime become tradable. That I think any kind of little tidbit that comes out, especially if it's a guy who in theory could be traded right now, people are gonna be all over, right? Because let's face it, that's what drives a lot of the news cycle in the NBA, right? Is this, but I'm with you that I think there was a little bit of because I saw it too, and I was a little like, all right, I don't know, it's super new, but okay, like fine. It's like it's been reiterated. Now, if it turns into somebody else tags on or Jovan follows up with there have been recent talks,
yes,
okay, that's a whole different thing. And now let's have this conversation. Part of what is interesting about this one too, like if we said the Lakers are interested in Giannis. Okay,
sure.
Cool. Them and everybody else. And how are they going to make that trade? Right. That's what you and I would sit here and literally we'd put a spreadsheet up and break it all down for everybody of probably not happening. Walker Kessler makes like $4 million. So it's pretty, I don't even think he makes 3 this year and like 4.5.
Yeah.
Next
3
year.
and
So
change this year.
Yeah. Very easily like acquirable, especially with the Lakers who are working around some pretty tight margins. You could definitely put together a trade without having to get too crazy with that. So that turns into, all right, well, that part becomes interesting because it's a far more reasonable target. And this is not, I'm only using the Lakers as an example, because it'd be the same thing as like the Suns are interested in.
Sure.
Like the Suns were one of the teams mentioned as having interest in PJ Tucker. We talked about it okay, but how are you going to get to that number? Like that's not a acquirable number really for the Suns in any reasonable way, nor should it be. If you really want him, let him get bought out and then just sign him. But yeah, so that's where that part at least piques my interest a little bit more, because like, okay, like there could be something here, because this is not one of those where, all right, let's get out the calculator and break out the CBA and dust off a couple archaic rules like stacking minimum, like what the Knicks did in their trade of like, all right, let's really dive deep in this, because that's how it would have to go down. This one is like, okay, they trade player X for player Y and make it happen. But yeah, I'm with you where I think the Jazz are more likely to just hang on to Kessler right now anyway.
Yeah. I mean, he's averaging a career high in blocks.
Yep.
He's been a monster on the boards, and they're starting him. And that was part of it too. It wasn't just a pull factor of teams are interested in Walker Kessler. There was a push factor here too, where Walker Kessler was frustrated that he wasn't starting. Well, now he is. So again, I think if anything's shifted with all of this stuff, I'm sure the Lakers are still interested. I'm sure there's a bunch of teams that are interested. The Pelicans would love to get Walker Kessler right now. There's a bunch of teams that I'm sure are still interested. But if I'm the Jazz, I'm less interested in trading him now. And we'll see, where this all ends up. But yeah, I don't think their interest was anything new. I think they'll continue to maintain interest in him, and we'll see if anything actually happens or not. But most likely, it's going to be closer to the trade deadline, if and when something gets done.
And that's where it's always good to kind of tuck these away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just file it away. And then if something comes up in December, January, or beginning part of February before the trade deadline, all right, at least this was already out there. And we know that there's been, because interest means there's been at least some level of like, this wasn't just the Lakers telling Jovan this. This was probably, yeah, we've had at least some conversation, some conversation in that Jazz were like, yeah, we're good right now. Like,
Yeah.
like that's usually how this goes down with these kind of things. So yeah, let's just like, I'm not put it this way, I'm not planning an emergency trade show anytime soon for any trade, never mind a Walker Kessler trade.
Keith, you know what though? The last time that we talked about how this is not the time of year for trades and all of that, Karl Anthony Towns got traded. So you never say never.
Year ago, we're right around James Harden trade time, right? Because it was a year ago when he got traded right at the season. It was what, a few days in, and then the Sixers are like, all right, we got to do this, get him out of here. So
right.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll be reconvening later this evening to break down something out of nowhere. I kind of don't think so, but who knows? Hey, if it happens, great. That's so much the better for us.
With the NBA, you just never say never, because who knows what's going to happen with this, with this crazy, wonderful league that we have here. But that's all we've got for today, everybody. We will be back tomorrow with all the latest. A lot of games tonight, more excitement around the NBA. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel as well as the podcast feed. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.